Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm happy and privileged, although sad, at the same time, to sponsor this resolution to honor and to urge the Senate to honor our former Sergeant at Arms, the late Bajao, as we used to call him, Jose Villa Ruz Balajadia, Jr., Major General, retired. Major General Balajadia was born on the 23rd November 1943 at Baguio. At the time of his demise, he was 75 years old. Mr. President, General Balajadia attended St. Louis College as an electrical engineering student. And when he reached second year, Wanderlust stepped in and he went out and decided to become a reserve pilot, Mr. President. He, in 1962, he formally started his military pilot training at the Philippine Air Force Flying School at Fernando Air Base, Lipa City. During his stay at the Philippine Air Force Flying School from 1962 to 1972, he also had the following training: Air Crew FAM course for F-86. He must have seen the movie The Hunters, with Robert Wagner and Robert Mitchum flew in an exciting movie. And at that time, the Philippine Air Force had the most modern plane called the F-86 Sabre jet, Mr. President. He then went on to jet qualification training. I can see that some of our colleagues have never heard of Robert Mitchum, Mr. President. That is their loss.
Senator Delon.
Their eternal loss, Mr. President. Yes, Your Honor, I would like to commiserate with them. They have missed a lot. Then he went to the advanced combat training, F-86, and of course went on to combat crew training, and at the same time aircraft maintenance officer course. In 1969, while at the flying school, he also went to Basa Air Base College. Mr. President, General Balajadia was somebody who obviously wanted to pursue a career, and he left school. He left his electrical engineering course to join the Air Force. But he never lost sight of the fact that he had to be educated to move ahead. And so he went to school, Mr. President, and went to take a BS Aviation and AB English at Basa Air Base College in Pampanga, probably while he was stationed there. And in 1978, this is one of his major errors, Mr. President, he also completed a master's degree in business administration from the La Salle School of Business, Mr. President. But nonetheless, it's a great school, and I'm happy that the example here is that General Balajadia was somebody who was filled with ambition, and he wanted to go to some of the best schools, including La Salle, Mr. President. I was just being privileged, Mr. President. In 1994, he then again studied at the Civil Aviation from the Civil Aviation Training Center. So he was always in pursuit of improving his stock. How many of us are aware that he rose from the ranks as a second lieutenant in 1964, reserve, and became a major general on 28 September 1998. That's a very, very big feat, Mr. President, for a reservist to go all the way to major general and to fly the latest planes of our country, Mr. President. At that time, we had an Air Force, a real Air Force that to be reckoned with. In fact, I don't know if he was one of those who went to the Congo, when our F-86 squadrons were sent to the Congo on peacekeeping forces. That was a time, golden age of our Air Force, when they could all go to another country and be utilized for peacekeeping duty. He became a squadron commander of the 6th Tactical Fighter Squadron of the Philippine Air Force from 1976 to 1978. In 1977, he was team leader of the highly esteemed, and I repeat, Blue diamonds. Again, that's a sorry miss for all the young people here. But again, the golden age of our Air Force, because, Mr. President, our Air Force was then non-parel. The Blue Diamonds could go anywhere and wow everybody. In fact, during the annual air shows, I would go there and watch our F-86 jets and later on our F-5s perform very, very serious aerobatic drills. And he was a team leader in the Blue Diamond Philippine Air Force aerobatic group. Who would imagine that this man who was very quiet, very dignified, very friendly, would really be one of those who would fly a high-performance jet plane for our country? Boy, I mean, he's got one over all of us. He became an executive officer of the Clark Air Base Command, but before that, in 1994, he was deputy commander of the Armed Forces of the Philippines Southern Command in Zamboanga, a premier position that many of our officers would like to be. Then he became an executive officer of the Clark Air Base Command when Clark Air Base was still under the U.S. Air Force. I correct that, Mr. President. We were never under the U.S. Air Force. We hosted the U.S. Air Force in the Philippine base at Clark Field. In 1991, he became the officer in charge of rescue and relief operations at Clark Air Base during the Mount Pinatubo eruption. He's a man of my heart, always a humanitarian, always trying to help other people, especially during this very, very severe crisis in 1991. But even before that, I might have bumped into him because his brother is the chairman of the Philippine Red Cross in Baguio chapter, who was a former fiscal, a very, very honorable one at that. I might have bumped into him when I went up to Baguio during the early operations at Luacan Airport, Mr. President, during the big Baguio earthquake, Mr. President. So he was in the middle of two disasters in our country. Many of us honor our military for fighting for our country, but we forget that they're also the ones that are in charge of disasters all the time. They risk life and limb to go out and rescue our people during floods, during disasters at sea, during earthquakes, and even during Yolanda, where many of our people in the armed forces and the police lost their lives in the big tsunami, or rather the big storm surge in Yolanda in 2013. From 1995 to 1998, I'm going backward, I should have gone forward, he became the wing commander of the 600 Air Base Wing in Clark and commander of Air Reserve Command. And from 1998-1999, he became the Deputy Chief of Staff for Reservist and Retiree Affairs. Mr. President, Joe Balajadia, and as we call him, Bajao, Mr. President, certainly served his country well. And he was given all kinds of decorations and medals. The Silver Wing medal was twice given to him. It is given for meritorious achievement while participating in aerial flight and a single act of merit, or for participating in sustained operations activities against the enemy while in an aerial flight mode, Mr. President. If you look at the presentation, you could see all the medals that are there, and I saw that at the wake, and I was so proud of him. He also received the Distinguished Service Star in 1993. It is the third highest military award in recognition for eminently meritorious and valuable service rendered while holding a position of great responsibility. Then he received the Gawad sa Kaunlaran twice award in development in April 1991 and February 1995 by the Armed Forces of the Philippines. The citation is considered as the second highest distinction presented by the Armed Forces of the Philippines to civilians and government officials. Then he received the Bronze Cross Medal thrice. Can you imagine that? He's not just satisfied with one. He always goes 3 times or 2 times. And in June 1994 and February 1995, this medal is awarded for heroism involving risk of life, either for voluntary action, and I repeat, voluntary action in the face of great danger above and beyond the call of duty, and 2 other deeds evidenced by extraordinary bravery not involving direct command or combat with the enemy. He received the Military Merit Medal 7 times. Probably did his duty Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 7 times, Mr. President. I see our good friend Senator Bato laughing, but I think he's trying to say that he can get it 9 times, meaning to say he'll go Saturday, and Sunday. He also received, Mr. President, the Military Commendation Medal twice. MCM is presented for exemplary execution of military duty. He received the Military Civic Action Medal 4 times from 73 to 1993, awarded for meritorious achievement in the conduct of humanitarian civic actions in direct support of military operations. He was a noble warrior who was schooled in combat, having destructive capacity in his airplane, but he was first and foremost a humanitarian. That's why I really like him, Mr. President. We had good conversations while he was here. Kahusayan Award in 14 August 1970. He was still a young man. Mutual Defense Award in 1986. Award of February 1986 Revolution ribbon bestowed upon all officers and enlisted personnel of the AFP and PNP in recognition of their professionalism and dedication to duty, as well as their contribution to the preservation of democracy and peace. Award of the Combat Badge, Kagitingan, awarded by the Commanding General, Philippine Air Force, or Philippine Army, to Philippine Army officers and enlisted personnel who have commanded combat and combat support units for at least 1 cumulative year. All other PA military personnel who have rendered at least 1 cumulative year of combat duty regardless of their assignment, including those engaged in combat service support operations. Mr. President, those are just the awards, and you can see on the screen how many he has achieved. He was a professional par excellence in the military. But that doesn't end his career. Again, he joined, and this is one of the great achievements of Senate President Drilon. Senate President Drilon appointed him here. He was a Cordilleran, Mr. President. And you know, the Cordillerans I have always considered as a great culture. The Ifugao, the Igorots, the Ibaloy, the Kalingas, they're all great folks. Nueva Vizcaya, all the way up to Abra. They have their own culture, very distinct. And I think Joe Balajadia represented all the things that are good about his ethnic background. A gentleman, man of his word, a very, very approachable individual, caring for his people at all times, caring for us, the senators, during the time that he was in the Senate. In the Senate, Mr. President, he served 5 Senate Presidents. Senate President Drilon, Villar, Enrile, Pimentel, and Soto. As Senate Sergeant at Arms, he was instrumental in keeping discipline, security, and enforcing the law at the Senate. I don't think we ever had a problem with security here. And every time we had discussions with him, along with Senator Lacson and Senator Honasan, and we were assigned to talk about security, he listened. He was a great listener, Mr. President. And that's why he was a great leader. He listened to his people, to his colleagues, and to his friends, and certainly he was very, very effective. During his stint as Sergeant at Arms, I had the great pleasure of, and comfort of having him watching my back, especially in the Blue Ribbon Committee, where we had very, very strong hearings involving criminals, Mr. President. And he made sure that he did his job along with his folks. We never mentioned our security, our people in the security detail under the Sergeant of Arms office. We only see them here helping us as pages, Mr. President. Some of them are security all around us. But they do a great job, and I think it's also time to commend them. I don't think we've ever taken time to take a look at the security folks, and they are always very, very good, very, very ready to serve and to protect us in the Senate. Now, Mr. President, his service at the Senate Sergeant at Arms was very crucial during the very, very big trial, impeachment trial of former Chief Justice Renato Corona and the arrest of one of our colleagues, Leila de Lime. But he did so with equanimity and pride in his profession, and certainly with fairness. And I think that a lot of the press like him. He's a darling of the media because he's always available, but at the same time, he's always seen as performing his job extremely well, Mr. President. My gosh, Mr. President, the Blue Ribbon investigations all the way to General Santos. He would send security after me, especially in the Blue Ribbon, where we were investigating a very, very tough criminal organization that was stealing land, and they were very, very powerful and influential, and had, people who could kill people. And let me just say this. He was instrumental in making sure that Al Argusino, Commissioner of BI, of Bureau of Immigration, and Michael Robles was jailed for contempt, Mr. President. And now they're in jail because their crime is one of punishable by capital offense, Mr. President. Then Nick Faldon was jailed at the Pasay here for a while, and he would always ask me, should I accept visitors for him? And I would say, what is your considered opinion? And he said, I can handle it, so go ahead. I had full trust and confidence in his capacity and his capability, and he would always deliver. And sometimes, Mr. President, we would have people who are in his responsibility. People would say, can I go to visit my family? And again, we would have discussions. He was very, very close, and I was very, very close to him. I consider it fortunate for me to be close to him, because every time he gave advice, it was sound advice. He would let people visit their families, of course, with the prior permission of the Senate President, and he would send them people and to accompany them, and we never had any problem with them as well. So the Senate is a Senate. Sometimes we enforce the rules, but we do so with a heart. And Bajao did it extremely well, Mr. President. In the case of Kenneth Dong, person involved in drugs, a very wily guy. Mark Taguba, involved again with smuggling and drugs. Irene Tadad, TJ Marsigana, Wally Sombero, another clever individual. He was the one who got them into in our jurisdiction, into our control. Marina Signapan was a very, very ornery witness who would keep changing his mind, but General Balajadia was always very, very patient. Mex Santos was cited for contempt. Jimmy Guban was our state witness. He's still in incarceration, although part, I think, of the witness protection program. He's now at the NBI. Emilia Lakingan, again, cited for contempt. Mr. President, he did his job extremely well. I think no one here can have a complaint against him. He was kind. He was always ready to listen to us, and he always looked after us. He always looked at the Senate and making sure that we are free from bombings, and I hope that the new individual, I'm sure he'll do it, Major General Rene also is cut from the same bolt of cloth that General Balajadia was cut from, and I'm sure he'll take care of us in the Senate. Not that we need taking care of, but certainly during these days you cannot have be overconfident, especially, and I take this opportunity to cite the fact that the President of the Philippines has already announced that there is now a Filipino suicide bomber, and today in the newspapers and on television they said that there were 7 people being trained in Mindanao for a suicide bombing in our country, and I'm sure our people will be on alert as well on that one. Now, Mr. President, amidst all these capabilities, accomplishments, and professionalism and humanitarian feats, Mr. President, General Balajadia was first and foremost a true Christian. He married Thelma, Mr. President, his sweetheart, of 50 years, Mr. President. They went up to 50 years. I don't know if General Bato will go up to 50 years. But certainly, I'm sure he will. Men of the academy usually are good husbands. They usually are afraid of their wives. And therefore, I saw Senator Tiveros gave me a leer because she was married to an academy person. Although said in levity, generally they follow the code of being a gentleman at all times. Now, Mr. President, he took pride in being the husband to lovely Thelma, who's a housewife. A loving father to Ray Jose, who's here behind me. His immensity, Ray Jose. Bigger than his father over there. Who runs the manpower organization. Another daughter, Maria Roseli, a psychologist who practices in her own clinic. Maria Cristina, a speech therapist in the United States. Maria Isabel, a caregiver in the United States. And Jonathan, youngest son representative, an architect, Mr. President. So you can see he's a great father. You can take a look at the picture. They're quite close and tight, Mr. President. His 50-year inspiring love story with his wife, Ms. Thelma, was featured in 2018 as part of the CNN Philippines Valentine's Special. They opened up about their journey through the many seasons of love, the highs and lows. Being a military wife, being a military family is hard, Mr. President. But Telma managed to keep him in high gear, and certainly he never forgot his duties as a husband, a father, and certainly a great citizen of this country. And he had all these essentials to a happy, successful relationship. On 7 July 2019, and I'd like to say this before I'd like to pause here for a while, General Balajadia was not a braggart. He's a humble man. His house is still the same old house in Fairview. I overheard Telma saying, I'm going to stay, Senator, in Fairview. Joe asked me to stay in Fairview when he goes. And, Mr. President, indeed, a lot of honor involved with this man, Mr. President. He had no car. He borrowed his son's car for a while. Until finally, they bought a car together. They shared the car. And something that is really precious to me, because all the time that served in the Air Force, he was a commander. He never abused his prerogatives, Mr. President. Always humble, always simple, always easy to approach, always a solicitor, but you can see by his demeanor, he was firm and fair. He was always ready to be a commander, but at the same time, be a kind gentleman at all times. All this in 38 years in the the service of our country as a part of the uniformed personnel of our country, and as a member of the staff that gives support to all of us senators here, Senate of the Philippines. 17 years in the Senate. And Mr. President, when he passed on that fateful day a week ago, I was too bad that we were out, but I wanted to call Senate President Soto to at least put our flag in half-mast, at least for a day or two, in honor of him. It's not too late to do that, Mr. President. Now, having said all that, Mr. President, I think that it would be worthwhile to reflect on Joe Balajadia. But another aspect, before I end, was the fact that he never complained. He was the same man I met about 15 years ago. No complaints. He was already ailing with prostate. He had cancer, and he stood erect in his seat all the time. I'll never forget the times that every time I passed by there, I never failed, and he never failed, to say hello, chit-chat a little, talk about what we were talking about here, talk about our country, talk about the games. And, we did Ateneo Lasal sometimes, and I always tell him we went to the wrong school, and, but still, he was indeed a great friend. I will miss him, Mr. President, as all of us will, I'm sure, Mr. President. And he was a good man to emulate, by senators and by the staff alike, Mr. President. And so today we close the book of his life in the Senate, and exhort all of us to give him a resolution, a big abrazo, spiritual abrazo. He's at a better place now, Mr. President. He's somebody I would have loved to put my arm around and say, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. It's not enough, never enough, but thank you for a great life. Soldier, professional in his duties all the time, whether civilian or military, and a great family man, and a great compassionate, caring, and humanitarian individual. Thank you, Sergeant at Arms Jose Balajadia, Major General, Philippine Air Force, and their medals are never enough, even the speech is never enough. We will always remember you. Thank you very much.